Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with a video on this. Outlaw, what is this? A new sword, but there was no unboxing video. Well, this sword was graciously given to me by a coworker today. As we can see, it is very ornate leather work. I don't know entirely what's this whole area is about. This sword was originally bought in Mexico by a friend of his, and he gave it to me because, according to him, it holds no significant sentimental value. And, of course, you know me, we love all swords here, especially very nice ornate swords. And this is actually a wall hanger, by the way. A functional one, and I'll get into that in a moment. But as we can see, it has very nice leather work here for as being as old as I assume it is. And this is a solid leather scabbard or sheath. Nice little belt. The belt is the most worn out of the leather work. As we can see here, it has an eagle head pommel with handle scales and a rather nice looking cross guard. Now, these handle scales look to be, I really don't want to say this, but they appear to be ivory. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is synthetic ivory, and there is still real ivory. You can buy real ivory, but it's highly restricted in terms of availability, because ivory is elephant tusk after all. But let's immediately get to the blade. Now, off the bat, this blade design itself, I actually quite like the look of it. It's actually sharper than I thought it was. Now, as we can see here, this has some very ornate design on the blade. On one side, I know this is going to be butchered as hell, so forgive me, but it says, it's going to what I can spell, Prodicos avocado, sos dasaquino di dirias y pani tempel dir elegplaga flugeflagen. Any of you that read or speak Spanish and can actually read that, let me know what it says in the comments down below. That's on one side of the blade. On the other, we have this very ornate nature etching. And it's not a cheap etch either. There is actually texture to this. And it is a solid construction, as we can hear from the banging. This appears to have been sharpened at one point. Now, in terms of how it feels, it's very light in the hand. And that's attuned to it being so thin. In fact, it's as thick as some machete blades. And my coworker actually said this was kind of like a machete. And really holding it in my hand, I'm not an entirely huge fan of the grip. It's very narrow, especially up towards the guard. In the middle, it's fine. But I'm used to grips that fill my hand a little more than this. I have good amount of room to maneuver this. And the back of the eagle head pommel doesn't actually impede my movements if I pay a little bit attention to what I'm doing, so as not to jab my own hand. Now, what did I mean by functional wall hanger? Well, in my opinion, some wall hangers aren't entirely unusable when it comes to cutting. Now, not to say that you should take a wall hanger to a tatami mat or anything like that. It'll obviously break them. But if you're cutting no denser target, then I'll be right back. One of these, an ice mountain bottle or any generic like water bottle, plastic bottle, then you can actually cut with them. I've done it myself. I've sharpened a friend of mine's wall hanger, a replica of Kenpachi Zaraki's sword from Bleach, and was actually managed to cut these and Coke bottles. Now, not to say that I would take this and attempt to cut anything more than that, because I don't believe this blade would handle it. The only reason I am confident enough to even attempt this is because this blade is physically welded to the rest of the grip construction. And it does have a decent amount of weight in it and thickness. It's about as thick as your stereotypical kitchen knives or machete. Blade's also very stout, as it doesn't flex a lot. So there's not a whole lot of flex in this. Honestly, this may be a little more functional than at first glance I thought it was. Not that I'm going to try putting it through its paces by any means. But we may see a small little cutting video with this once I touch up the edge a bit. Overall, its handling is quite exceptional for what it is. Now, I don't want to appear to sound ungrateful. I am very much grateful. I'm grateful for any blade that is gifted to me. It's just that when you are a blade reviewer, such as myself or other people, even when a blade is given to you, you have to put all that personal bias aside and give honest thoughts and criticisms. Otherwise, how can you expect other people to take your word for a blade and know that you are a reliable source of information? Alright? Sword companies are just like any other company. One good review can make their products fly off the shelf from a reputable sword YouTuber or reviewer. One bad review from the same criteria could also tank their sales. And even though I don't know who the maker of this blade was, I can tell that I wouldn't say this was a cheap blade by any means, especially for its size. I would argue this blade would be about $60, $70 if you were to buy a blade of the exact proportion and sizes new from Mexico, perhaps from a gift shop. And in terms of machete prices, that's going into a rather mid-range to beginning of high-end category. for swords, 60, 70 bucks ain't nothing. You can get functional 1045 swords from Amazon for 50 bucks. But overall, I'm very much more pleased than I initially thought I would be with this, now that I've had some time to kind of play around with it and really get a feel for it. The way the grip is, indexes very well, I should say. And because of the way it's designed, I can easily put my thumb up against the crossguard, which I tend to prefer saber grips, and putting my thumb up here for added power and control. But not to say that I also don't facilitate handshake grip. I kind of change my grip as needed. Overall, what would I give this sword, personally, out of 10? Honestly, it scores an 8 out of 10 for me. And don't get me wrong, the 1 out of 10 I'm giving this is more for just, honestly, the aesthetics. This type of sword really speaks to me. I like this design. Usually I'm not a big fan of blades that have kind of a false edge and the tip doesn't swoop back. But this is giving me very much the impression that the one who made this took a lot of time in doing so. There is inconsistencies in the shaping and the metalwork that shows me that this was handmade. And I love the intricate, ornate etching on the blade. So it's mainly aesthetics that is making this score so high. It does lose out 2 points for functionality, because aside from, as I said before, light water bottle targets, I really wouldn't cut anything harder than that. Maybe some honeydew vines, the really thin ones that hang off of trees that are about the width of a pencil lead. But with that in mind, retention in the sheath is actually quite a good bit of retention for it being a leather sheath, with no kind of buckle or strap to go over the crossguard. So, until next time, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe and use your weapons, and this may be getting a name soon. Yes, I may be naming this sword. In fact, I'm already thinking of a name as we speak, and I think I'm just going to simply name this sword Tallon. The Tallon. Now you're probably wondering, why would I name it the Tallon? Simply because this is giving me really the most accurate reason I could say I'm liking this so much is that it's giving me Lord of the Rings vibes, and I'm a major fanboy of Lord of the Rings. Now, to my, I suppose, shame, I have not read any of the books by J.R.R. Tolkien, and have simply watched the Peter Jackson trilogy of the Lord of the Rings. But that being said, perhaps someday I will read the books. But this is just giving me like Sting vibes, like when Bilbo is fighting against the spiders and they say, "It stings us! It stings us! Run! We are no match for Sting!" For those of you who don't know, that line came from the original Hobbit movie of the 1980s, animated Hobbit. Which, is a whole thing on its own. So until next time, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe, use your weapons. I'm out. Peace And look forward to me probably not being very smart and attempting to cut with tallon in the future.